Hello, wonderful humans of Earth. I am Brainwave, and I am making another tutorial. It is another bass sound design tutorial. If you watched one of my last tutorials, the making a bass sound with your fan, electric fan one, where I was increasing like fundamental frequencies to bring out bass tones or notes in an electric fan and then just making a weird bass out of it. You might recall that I said something along the lines of I wish I could figure out how to route minimums and maximums for parameters in effects or for synths even, just in general, to a fruity formula controller macro knob like knob A. I don't know if there is a way to set minimum and maximum amounts for parameters before they go routed and linked to fruity formula controllers knobs and be able to have like a macro knob that controls all parameters, but different amounts of minimum and maximum for a parameter are going into this knob between each thing, all individualized. Well, I never figured out how to do that with fruity formula controller. I already knew how to do something like that with just a standard automation clip and then going into a standard automation clip and then setting a minimum and maximum in an automation clip, but that wasn't good enough. I needed to be able to just have multiple effects go into a master or macro automation clip or knob that would have precise control or precision between every effect going into it, and control all of them that way. And the workaround for that was I was talking with my friend the other day and he just suggested, why don't you do this with XY controller? Fruity XY controller has that already, like with minimum and maximums and stuff, you know, cut out having to use fruity formula controller altogether that way. And that was a great suggestion. I'm glad he said that because that worked. And so this tutorial today is literally on how I made this bass sound using 6 different fruity XY controllers between a mid-bass synth layer, a sub with white noise synth layer, and both of those are grouped. They're routed to their own bass group here with further processing as well. And so I'll show you how I made this sound. So there's a lot going on right now. I mean, it's kind of minimal at the same time, but without the drums, it sounds like this. But you could see just then, right, that there was stuff going on with the XY controllers. So it's really vowel sounding-ish. My friend even said it sounded like vowely, like there were vowels coming from the mid-range of the bass. That's all the mid-bass layer. That's not the sub and white noise layer doing that. That's absolutely the mid-bass layer. So I'm going to break down everything that I did to get this bass sounding the way that it sounded. So here we have a mid-bass right here, and we have a sub with white noise right here. Insert channel 1 and insert channel 2. Both are 3x oscillator in FL Studio, Image Lines 3x oscillator. The first layer is a mid bass that's just one oscillator that's a sine waveform. And the detune amount right here is linked to controller. And right here, you can see that it is linked to a controller named ring mod amount and detune amount. Whichever parameter comes first in the name is X. Whichever parameter comes second in the name is Y. So detune amount is linked to Y at the moment in the second fruity XY controller. I know this is going to be a bit out of order here. But yes, it's routed to this right here, this Y parameter. And if I open this XY controller right here, that means this right here, this Y, is the detune amount, of this. And so that's the only synth parameter that's actually going into XY with the mid-bass layer. So first effect, I'll just go over the effects now in this chain. First effect is a plugin, bit crushing plugin called Crush, which I really like. It's a nice bit crushing plugin, it really is. No dry amount, it's fully wet. There is bit crushing amount and downsampling amount, and both of these effects parameters are being routed into this first XY controller right here. This first XY controller that is bit crush downsampling and crush amount. So bit crush downsampling is X and crush amount is Y. You'll see here that I set like the maximum here at 49% and the minimums are all the way down at 0% for X if X is bit crush downsampling. And Y here has a slightly different maximum, higher maximum at 51%, but minimum is still 0% if Y is crush amount. And you can see that when I open this, if I play the bass sound again, and if I open this, the bit crusher, and I play the sound again, all because the minimums and maximums are set this way, or especially because the maximum is set to being so close to halfway, the crush and downsampling amount never reached their full maximum amount of intensity. And that's what I needed, was this kind of thing. The level of this XY controller, of each XY controller even, is linked to controller, and I called the automation clip parameter macro. But yes, each of these XY controllers level amounts, each of these four are routed to an automation clip called parameter macro. And parameter macro is literally just this right here. So all this right here, like if I adjust this, like you can see we get different kinds of like of rates here happening. So parameter macro is basically the master macro or automation clip for all things XY controllers between these two layers. So yeah, I digressed there a little bit, but I thought that was worth mentioning and important to point out. This is where things start to get vowel sounding, like with like a vowely sounding vowel, like stuff like that. Here we have ring modulator in Infiltrator 2, and that's just for simplicity's sake, because honestly, I like the tone and the sound of the ring modulator in Infiltrator 2, and it's light on CPU. That's literally like the whole reason I decided to use this ring modulation. Light on CPU and simplicity. It's like very easy to understand, and it's nice for convenience sake for sound design. So here you can see even the frequency knob of ring modulator in Infiltrator 2 has a maximum amount set to where it doesn't ever reach full intensity. The fullest intensity it reaches is 313 hertz. The frequency amount of ring modulator is being linked to X in the second XY controller, and the maximum here is 41% again. Just like the bit crush downsampling amount was, and we're back around full circle to detune amount here from 3x oscillator, the detune amount that makes things have so much stereo spread. That was linked to Y, so we already went over that, but yeah, that's Y here. The next thing is this XY controller, the third one, which is distortion. There's more going on with minimum here. There's more going on with minimum effect amount, and maximum is still being adjusted to, so it doesn't ever reach full intensity. But the distortion is a plugin called Brut. I don't know how to pronounce it. I played around with the distortion or the drive models here, like the different models, and poly or poly or whatever it is, ended up sounding the best for this sound and for this bass tone after I played around with it a bit. The drive knob here is being linked to X here in distortion. And you can see, like, if I play the sound again, because minimum is set to 36% and maximum is set to 84%, it never goes fully down to completely zero distortion or drive, but it never goes up to full or maximum potential intensity for or amount for drive. So it has like a happy medium that seemed to work pretty well for this bass sound, I feel like. Y here, parameter Y, is the hertz right here for the UBM filter in this distortion. The feedback, since the feedback is like this high up at like 80%, 79%, 80%, it's giving this sound more of a vowely sound to it. Like, listen to this. If I brought this all the way down to nothing, this is how it changes so drastically. It's a subtle difference, but it's there. And going back to the ring modulation, if we didn't have the ring modulation here, watch what happens. Kind of crazy. I mean, it sounds cool, but it's definitely a different sound without even the ring modulation. I would say that the ring modulation frequency and the UBM filter for the feedback for the Brit overdrive are the two primary elements that make this mid bass sound like it's getting so vowel sounding and like having like this characteristic of like talking or talking to you, like kind of sound. If the UBM filter was not routed to Y in the third XY controller distortion, and if ring modulator frequency was not routed to ring modulation amount in X in the second XY controller, this just wouldn't be the same sound. It would not have the same like sounding like sound to it. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't at all. It just wouldn't be the same sound. All right, and finally, on to the last thing for this layer, because I know this is a lot of rambling and a lot to go over. The last thing, or last XY controller for this layer is Torque here, and Torque is a really cool plugin by Waves. I don't know how to explain it well enough, but it like works on focusing in on a band. Like here, and it's focusing in on 215 hertz, and you can see that torque is routed to X in torque amount here. I don't think Y is doing anything at all. In fact, the level of Y is not even routed to this parameter macro automation clip here at the end, because it's not doing anything. It's literally just X doing all the work here. So here's what's happening with the torque amount. If I turn torque off, this is what it sounds like. Sounds different, doesn't it? Like the pitch changes slightly. It gets more precise with torque. So I think that's ultimately why I ended up putting it on the chain. And I have a cut here at 104 hertz. The reason for that is hello, good morning. I'll let him finish sneezing. There's a cat sneezing in the background. As you can see, like, yeah, 104 hertz or so here. Just like there's this high pass cutting out any potential rumble or like conflictions or problems that you might have with the sub, because the low fundamental of the sub right here is like roughly around like 60, 61 hertz or so. is the fundamental frequency for the sub. So if this was going to be a one note bass, like a one note drop type of bass where you don't have so much going on melodically, it only made sense to cut out up to like 104 hertz. I didn't feel like it necessarily needed to go up higher to like 140 hertz or 160, 80 hertz, 100 or 90, 200 hertz. Like sometimes I usually will cut up much higher, but especially if something's melodic and there's going to be melodic sounds and like there's layers and stuff that need to work melodically. Because this is a one note bass, I decided to only cut to like 104 hertz, and it seemed to be fine for this. It made the space necessary for the sub layer. And then finally at the end of the chain, I have overheat here, which I don't think is doing anything. I mean, like, I don't think modulation's happening with it. Like, no, it's just final distortion or drive or saturation. It's final, like, harmonic enhancement. That's all it's really doing here. If I turn it off, it sounds like this. If I turn it on, it sounds like this. And it's absolutely making a difference. I mean, it goes up to like -9 in this layer if it's not on. It's like -15 right now with it on. It makes a difference, not even just in headroom, but it makes a difference in the tone. It makes a difference in the sound itself. It sounds like a different sound because it has overheat on it. By the way, this is a free plugin. It's awesome. All right. And the mid bass is going to bass group here finally. Now on to sub with white noise. I know this is a lot to go over. Sorry. Sub with white noise here. Another 3x oscillator. Second 3x oscillator. 2 oscillators in this are being used. It's the sine waveform here as the first oscillator, and white noise with AM to oscillator 3, high quality set on, and the white noise level for this oscillator is being linked to controller. Coarse tune for sub and white noise level, that's being linked to Y. So that's the white noise is being linked to Y right here, and Y, let's see. Yeah, Y has no like specific restrictions or limitations for minimum and maximum, so it's full range. It's going absolute loud to quiet, loud to quiet. So nothing happening there with that. X right here is a little more specific because how I chose to level the sub, as bizarre as it sounds, this is how I chose to level the sub, was by having a parametric EQ here and having a roll off here in the lows, and you can see what's happening. Is literally the frequency bandwidth. The bandwidth for this shelf, it is being routed to X right now, but we have a certain maximum set at 38%, while there's a 0% minimum. And this 38% maximum here is what helps keep the sub from ever like having too much of a boost back up and like going like boom and like being too much for everything, and your ears, headroom, speakers shaking, like stuff like that. It's a big difference. It's very important is what I'm trying to say. So that's why that's that way. And then finally we have one last XY controller here, Fruity XY controller, the 6th XY controller, and nothing is happening with Y parameter, but X parameter does have something going on here. Excuse me. What is going to sublevel here? See, look at me not even knowing what's going into sublevel here. Something important is going into this sublevel one at X, parameter X, with a minimum of 55% and a maximum of 75%. Coarse tune for sub with white noise right here, the sine wave. is normally set to X of coarse tune and sub and white noise. Normally, the coarse tune of sine wave here in the sub is linked to X and coarse tune there. And the white noise volume here of this oscillator here is normally routed to white noise level in Y. And then sub level X for sub level is just the stuff going on with the shelf here and the bandwidth of the shelf. And that covers the last XY controller. My gosh, wow. So all in all, that is a total of 6 different Fruity XY controllers with 9 or 10, I can't remember, parameters. 9. 10 if we include routing or linking the coarse pitch, the coarse amount, the coarse tune for the sine wave, for the sublevel. Then it's technically 10. If we don't link that and we have a sub that stays in its fundamental frequency consistently, that stays in its sustained note, then 9. Then 9 parameters in total being linked between 6 different XY controllers. Now, mid-bass and sub with white noise are being linked again to a bass group here. The bass group just has a bit of a wide, it is a wide boost here at 64 hertz. The reason I made it wide and not narrow was because here it's actually also bringing up harmonics of the low mids of the mid bass now too, and I wanted some of the mid bass to also come up too. So that's why it's wide there and not narrow. It's because I rather than have just fundamental of sub increased, it's nice to have low mids of mid bass increase too. I was always told at one point in my life that if you ever do mid side EQ, if you want to like do it the right way, like this, what they say, if you boost sides, you cut mids in that same range. If you boost mids, then you cut sides in that same range in order to make the space work, is how it was explained to me. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I wanted the sides of the mid bass to feel more, just a bit wider, just a bit more there in your face there. So it's like 1.9 dB of gain boost at 526 hertz here with pretty wide Q for this bell-shaped Q in the sides here. And then in the mids, we're subtracting a little bit more actually here than just 1.9. We're actually doing quite a drastic cut here at 2.5 decibels here in the same range at 525, 26 hertz here. And then finally, the last band here in this is 9,000 kilohertz or 9 kilohertz of just the mids. So like just the mono, that confuses me still too. When people say mids, do they mean the mid-range of a sound, stereo and mono information, or do they mean the mids, the center mono information of a total combined sound? It still confuses me. So the mono or the mids of the highs here in the top end are being boosted significantly. There's a significant boost right now happening. 3.9 decibels here at 9 kilohertz. And that's bringing out the white noise, and it's also bringing out the aggression of the mid bass. If I turn off the sub with white noise oscillator channel and you only hear the mid bass, actually there's really not much high frequency content at all, if any, with the mid bass. It's just high mids, if any. So as you could hear, like this EQ is working with more of accentuating the white noise of that 3X oscillator. Yeah. Next we have some glue here in the chain, a spec amp by Analog Obsession. I like this compressor actually a lot. Hopefully I got the attack and release settings hopefully goodish. I'm not always incredibly confident whatsoever on my attack and release with compression, I'll be honest, but hopefully it's like doing kind of okay here with 65 seconds of release and 40 milliseconds of attack. Threshold's been brought up 8.4 decibels. Ratio is very small. It's just 2 to 1. It's just a 2 to 1 ratio. Nothing crazy with the ratio, to be honest. It's a pretty subtle ratio. And it makes a difference for sure. Very subtle difference, but there's something in it. It's absolutely adding glue. So we have color here as the next thing in the chain. This is adding color, analog sounding color to a sound even. It's really not doing much, to be honest. I mean, yes, I say that, but it's doing a bit. The drive is the only thing happening here. Drive is being adjusted in color. Nothing else is being done with it. Just the drive has been brought to 31.6 dB in color. Without it, it sounds like this. With it, sounds like this. Definitely making a difference. We have some gain staging happening for any kind of makeup gain that needs to happen. Since we increased the decibel after using the drive and color, we needed to apply makeup gain staging, and decrease a decibel after the process. So fruity balance knob here to do that. And then finally we have JB Barricade Pro brick wall limiting. The sound is going just like this. We could bring it up more. But would we really want to? Like, if it gets to the point where it's like the difference between glue, super glue, Gorilla Glue, and Vaseline, then if a sound is being glued, there eventually reaches a point where it gets to Vaseline or Gorilla Glue level, and then it's like glue overboard. So would we really want to actually boost this more into the brick wall limiting? I don't know. So I kind of decided I was just going to keep it subtle at that. It's the subtle things happening between all of these. If I go through these effects one by one and turn each of them off and then turn each of them on one by one, you'll see how they're all making differences when they add up by the end. After JB Barricade Pro, more gain staging happening, makeup gain applied, because it just needs to happen. -3 decibel decrease, so fruity balance knob there. The reason I have these fruity limiters on by itself with this bass, they do nothing. This is just ducking. Literally ducking is what's happening for when I did the experiment with the drums here. So literally 3 different ducking processes, 3 different side chaining processes happening between 3 fruity limiters at the end of the chain. If there's ever the first kick, the second kick, and the snare. And that's all that's happening with those 3 fruity limiters. There's 3 different ducking processes. It only matters and applies at the end of this chain if you have the drums. Yes. If you're just listening to the bass sound by itself without the drums, disregard those entirely. Those don't matter. They might as well not even exist. So that's what I'm trying to say here. So I want to go one by one. I want to go one by one through each of these processes, turning them on gradually so you can see exactly what's happening if they're off. We have this, just F6 on only. Spec op on next. Color on next, but fruity balance knob so it gain stages. Or makeup gain for gain staging, I should say. And then JB Barricade Pro and fruity balance knob for gain staging, makeup gain for gain staging. Makes a big difference from where we started with. When you get to this, by the end. And if you have none of these on, like if you just don't even have the first EQ on, this processing chain is working overtime. If I listen to this in mono, yeah, I can even see why I did the stereo separation automation here now, to be honest. Like just all this down here. Yeah, so parameter macro, all the levels of the 6 XY controllers and their XYs, all of those level parameters for those XYs are being linked to this one master parameter automation clip at the end here. Yeah, it's absolutely a big difference without it, for sure. You can like play around with this and get crazy too. You really can. Like, let's see. But yeah, you can absolutely see why you wouldn't want to. You can absolutely see why once they're set a certain way, the way that you want them in these automation clips, eventually there reaches a point where it's impractical for the sound instead. So anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I know it was a long one, and hopefully you got a lot out of this, and I will leave a preset file format mixer channel insert preset things in the description below, and I will also leave a list of plugins that were used even in making this. So yes, with that, I hope you have a wonderful day and you drink more water than I ever do in my life cumulatively up to this point. Yes. Peace.